Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me, and welcome to tonight's show on Tartarian Empire and Star Forts. This is a pretty exciting topic. This topic is one that I've been to events. Tartaria Australia has events and things like that that they do in Melbourne, and I got to go to one. I think it was coming out the end of one of the lockdowns and things. So I do have a few photos to also share from some of the Tartarian side of things here in Australia, because we have a lot of Tartarian buildings here, especially in. So I just want to thank everyone for joining and see a couple of questions. Ben, thank you for your questions too. I saw some of them before going to bed last night, so I want to try and get to a few of the questions. I highly recommend, actually, before we do that, before I get carried away and like stuck right into research and everything that we've been doing, let me just share with you guys to please like, share, and subscribe over on Mesa on Jupiter. And we can see that the channel is growing, which is really, really good. The girls and I are so happy to see this and so grateful for your likes and your shares and subscribes. But yeah, make sure to hit the notification button so that you make sure you don't miss any of these shows. You can see here, the girls have got the Astro and Tarot predictions for May. So make sure to go and check out your Sun, Moon, Rising. And I like to check out my Venus sign as well. But yeah, have a look what the girls have just done too. There's activations coming up. You can see Sophie and I have a Mystery Monday show coming up too, which will be really exciting. We're going to be doing another show on manifestation and free will. Yeah, lots to look out for, as well as picker cards. And I do recommend going and checking out. Elena and Julie did a show on abundance. That one was really good too. So use the discount code Jupiter in all caps to receive 10% off your next booking with me. I am going away for a little mini trip to Uluru coming up shortly. So I'm going to take a little bit of time off, but yeah, use the discount code Jupiter in all caps for the starseed readings and the mystical oracle readings. Now, when I'm doing these sessions, I'm a natural clairvoyant, but I do work receiving information on all senses. I kind of get like a multi-sensory download of information. So sometimes I even get taste, which is really, really weird, especially if we're communicating with sometimes like people's family that's passed. I've had weird experiences with taste and smell and things coming in with that kind of thing. But yeah, starseed reading and mystical oracle reading, we start with aura drawings, and then we really look into either your starseed side of things and your origins and your mission and like what you're here for. And then in the mystical oracle side of things, we look into your energy field, what's sort of coming in energetically, what's present, what perhaps we need to jump you past and work with and release, as well as like looking into your list of questions. And I love looking into questions and deep diving. So make sure to have your list prepared if you are booking a mystical oracle reading with me. And we have over here receiving abundance activation, which will be on May the 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So please make sure to register for that. You guys got a little bit of a taster with the girls talking about abundance on their recent show, and you can see Sophie and I down here. So it's simple just to click on the bookings. Also gift cards available too. And let's get into our topic for today. So jumping into the Tartarian Empire, and just give like a little, maybe give me like a purple heart if you've heard of the Tartarian Empire before and Star Forts, or if it's something you're really interested in. So this book, you can see I've got lots of notes and things. So The One World Tartarians, which is the greatest civilization ever to be erased from history. I highly recommend this, by James W.E. Lee. So this was actually a Christmas present that I bought my partner. And it has so many pictures that it's worth buying alone just for the pictures if you guys are interested in this subject. And I will start by reading a little bit of the intro, and I do have some pictures and things to share with you guys and some videos and things. And thank you. I love bringing these shows to you guys, and excited to see that you guys making it on time. Thank you, Ben, for your question as well. I want to get into that a little bit later. And as Tim is an amazing person for reminding us, please hit that like, share, and subscribe. And yeah, it's so lovely to see you guys here as well. And let's have a look. So just in the introduction to this, I'm just going to read this quickly because it kind of covers a little bit. Now, the intro does go on for a few pages. I'm just going to read one. So it says, once upon a time, there was a highly advanced civilization, today known as Great Tartaria. She disappeared from our history books less than a century ago. So vestiges are still everywhere. The civilization dominated technologies more advanced than the present ones. The geopolymer concrete was external and grew stronger over time. Its gigantic iron and glass structures, surmounted by domes, metal needles, were present on every continent associated with Mercury. These distributed free atmospheric energy to everyone. Its towers and railway stations are still in operation. Unfortunately, the technology of free energy from the ether was destroyed and imprisoned, and old technology reintroduced, like cables, wires to distribute energy and to make handsome profits. So it also goes into talking about Nikola Tesla. It talks about like how nature has this magical kind of omnipresent, which we've gone into with our plasma technology shows and things before. And we know UFOs and things also work similarly. It does say the fake history has been called the ancient architectures of the Moorish revival, the Masquerade, the Islamic, the colonial, the medieval, the neoclassical, Baroque, Romanesque, Gothic, Baksu art, I might be pronouncing some of these wrong, eclectic, Tudor, Renaissance, Palladian, Richardson, Romanesque, Chicago School, and Victorian. So these are all kind of like some of the labels and things that perhaps may have come under the old Tartarian Empire side of things. And we even see talking about things as like the first power stations around, I think it was 876 in ancient Egypt with some of the earlier power stations. So we really do or are programmed with a different version of history now compared to like what we've been told or what we're sort of uncovering or finding in some of the old photos. What I did notice in some of the research too is that some of the old photos that you see where they've got like the cities, some photos have a few airships or like the blimps that we see even in the old, I guess like some of the wars and things. Some of these have been erased and there's like a whiteness in the sky, or not the best photoshopping job as well. Oh, and I do want to say thank you guys for tuning in last week. My show was actually taken down off YouTube for sharing some clips of some movies and things. So you have to be extra careful in what I share. So some of these things I will be talking about. But yeah, let's have a look into my first video that I have for you guys. And I'm just going to pop this up. So yeah, please do pop a little purple heart below if you have heard of the Tartarian culture before. And this one, we're going to talk about star forts, just to give you an idea first around different things. So this was a TikTok one from the Bully Slayer, and let's play this one.
I know about star forts. That's good. That's real good. Alright, listen to this. So star forts have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Nobody knows who built them. Some say the Tartarians, some say the Moors, but nobody knows for sure. There are many different types. You can get Starfort castles, Starfort towns, and even Starfort cities. And many people don't know this, but the Statue of Liberty is actually built on top of a Starfort. Even the Pentagon is shaped like a Starfort. So these Starforts was built to be a vibrational frequency ecosystem. It gathered and stored natural energy from the ether and the water, a bit like a power station. The technology that they had in the past was so advanced, it's amazing. Imagine if they never had no technology, no satellites. How would you remove the land and replace it with water for it never to grow back again? Just look at the shape and the detail. We sure don't make it like that anymore.
So that's just sort of like a good taste into what you can see. I love to give visual references, me being visual, and a lot of our learning is visual as well. So this empire, from what I've sort of seen, they say it was around 150 years ago that it existed, which is really not that long ago. And it was referred to as the Golden Empire. What I could find was that Tartaria means strong place. So that was interesting, just looking into when it is, you know, a one world empire or a one world civilization. So there is some script and writing and things when we look into the language. Thanks, Larry. So yeah, when we look into it, some of it looks kind of more Sumerian or Sanskrit type looking writing. So it does seem to be that there was one language. We do see like a huge portion of the Tartarian Empire covered most of Northern Asia, although we do see buildings here in Australia. And I'm going to give some examples of some of the architecture. And some of the architecture styles have even been lost in that they don't know how to make them anymore. And I do know personally that there has been a little bit of a rediscovery as to this. And it seems to be the sacred geometry, and there seems to be the golden Fibonacci sequence that's also connected with some of the makings of these buildings as well. And yeah, let me know if there's any fairies in the background tonight too. It's always fun to have them here. So yeah, what we also see is Putin actually shared a map of Tartaria back in 2013, and he has presented it to other people or other presidents as well. So this is something that is a little bit more talked about in other cultures and not as hidden. So let's have a look into my next video that we have. So that was just a quick little one as well, just to show you. And I love what Zania said as well. So in Hampshire, UK, we have a gin distillery inside of a star fort. It has been one of the few ways, and I just saw something fly past that may have been a bird, getting inside. So it's not possible to get into the middle, and cameras are everywhere. So that would be an exciting adventure, and I would love it. Like, this is on my bucket list to go visit these places. Campbell from the Autodiacratic channel in Australia, he's actually been doing trips to some of these star forts and things. So do check out his channel. And I do have, let me just bring it up to reference. This is a really amazing channel. Let me just find where I've popped it. Here it is. So Campbell has an incredible channel, Autodiacratic. I highly recommend checking this out. He has so many amazing, cool shows talking to people from all over the world on this subject. So it is one of the best channels that you will find on this subject. And we also have, let me just see if I can find this, Tartaria Australia. So Callie, who is also part of Tartaria Australia. You can see here, this is a depiction. It looks like Flinders Street Station, which is here in Melbourne, Victoria. And you can see that they've done an artist illustration of multiple layers and underground trains and things, because of the mud floods that occurred in the ancient Tartarian days. A lot of it has been covered up. So when we look into some of these buildings, and you may see it in a few of the videos that I have for you guys tonight as well. Let me just stop the screen share. And you may see it in some of the videos I have. You will notice that some of the buildings, when you look at the street level, there'll be like a little window that seems to be under the sidewalk or the pavement, or you'll see half the window. And this is perhaps because we had a mud flood. And you'll see even in the old buildings here in Victoria, where I live, in the old photos, it seems to be these amazing, huge buildings on grand scales with this Tartarian antennas and things like that, and the churches, which perhaps were not really churches. Perhaps they were originally used for healing or for, connecting to spirit. We do see that on some of the buildings, instead of saying built, it will actually say founded. So if you do have some of these amazing buildings within your city, or you're on holiday, go and check it out. So some of them, instead of saying built, will say founded, which really just means that the building's been found or reclaimed. So like a lot of banks and institutions and things will have like founded in a certain date. So it helps us to kind of uncover a little bit more of what possibly might be happening. But yeah, the old photos are fascinating. These huge buildings that they're saying were built just, like with a hammer and good manpower, and they came up within about a year, because a lot of these buildings are said to have come up or been built within a year. Yeah, we see dirt roads, we see horses and carts, and especially here, like within Australia and within Victoria, where I live, they're saying that some of these buildings were established in gold rush days. So how did they get all of the materials and things on the ships when they came out here for the gold rush? It doesn't make sense. And those colonial days, they really didn't have the technology, the tools and things like that. So it's more that they've walked in to perhaps a city that's had a mud flood, and they've found these cities and claimed them. So yeah, interesting concept to look into it that way. A lot of other people seem to be of the same mind. And exactly, I can see Ben saying the same thing. And I can see Ken saying he just saw another fairy. And Sally saying orbs as well. Awesome. So this is also where we talk about like huge resets and things too. So this is looking back to around 150 years ago. And I'm just checking that we're going through everything. Let me see what video I've got for you guys next. And this is actually a web page. So I'm just going to bring this up. Okay, so there's so much information now. We're living in such a lucky time. So do check this out as well. Let me see what page I was on. So this is from Uranium Wisdom. Or Unuranium Wisdom, and it's just talking about the Tartaria mud flood reset and the missing legacy. So another great illustration depicting what we see in some like the modern Russian buildings and some of the other more Western buildings, and how it looks like there's a huge city going underneath. So looking into the dome tops and these antenna, and even some of the crosses and some of the other religious symbols were said to perhaps have been used to harvest this ether or this free energy too. So there's a little bit more information we see here. This is where it covers most of Northern Asia. So you see it says Great Tartaria, and it's out in the Caspian Sea as well. So interesting if we look out into what we've talked about in like the Antarctic show and other ones, where I have brought up little maps of kind of like the flat realm, where we have Earth in the center, or we have our realm that we live in. You also see that it says like the Pleiadian world. There's the like Arcturian world. I think there was the Tartarian Empire was in another realm as well. So perhaps some of these people that have lived in the other realms or outer realms may have in fact actually come and founded the modern, which I'm saying modern, even though we're talking 150 years ago. And I can see Ben's question. Let me just see if I can bring this up. So Ben put this in last night, which I really appreciate. Thank you, Ben. So where did the Tartarians go? Could they be on an unknown continent here on Earth? Does the destroyed Tartarian buildings in our 3D reality still exist in another dimension? So we do see when we look into like ET contact, and we look into talking about realms and talking about spectrums. So with me visually being able to see just outside our normal human spectrum, I do see a lot of beings or interdimensionals or even multidimensionals come in and out. So some of these will not exist where they'll have like a digestive system like we do. With the Tartarians as well, we find that in a lot of the buildings, there's not a kitchen and there's also not a bathroom. And there may have even been no moon in the location or in that timing. So when you look back to a lot of the old writings and things like that, and Campbell and Kelly from Tartaria, Australia, I remember speaking about this. They were speaking about it at the conference a couple of years ago, and I think it was Campbell was perhaps surmising that maybe there wasn't a moon in this Tartarian culture. Perhaps we were under two suns. And when we think about sun being plasma, perhaps some of these giants that we see in the Tartarian culture perhaps existed, and perhaps some of the people existed and the cities from this plasma. So we did go into this a little while ago. I think it was in the blood show that we did. We talked about how, plants take in plasma energy and then we consume plants to get that plasma or that life force energy. So what if we're talking about a time that perhaps didn't exist, where the moon didn't exist, or perhaps was not towed into our atmosphere at that stage? So perhaps we didn't sleep as much. There might have been a higher level of consciousness with all this plasma and ether energy too. So if we're looking into perhaps like where some of these Tartarians have gone, some of them may have actually gone back outside of our realm. So that is something to perhaps look into a little bit in the cards tonight. But yeah, I just wanted to share with you guys this one. So you can see here, there is the Tartarian map. There's a few videos. Here's a depiction or illustration of some of the giants. So you will also see in, let me just see, in the Tartarian book, I've just highlighted and popped up some of the, let me just bring my screen back up a little bit bigger for you guys so you can see. So you will see here how there's amazing photos in this book. And this one I just got on Amazon. You see the Tartarian flags too of the different empires. And I see Sally saying that they are behind the ice wall. So perhaps they might be. That is like an interesting thing I want to have a look into as well. And I can see Tim saying as well, perhaps they shifted to the next level. So this is highly possible because I did have different types of healing technology, and I did look for, couldn't find it, but there is old photos, and I know Autodiacratic, I think Campbell and Kelly on Tartaria Australia have also shared different pictures. So when we look into different technology, they were able to make contact with the spirit world. And what I mean by that is not so much in like the ectoplasm mediumship that we see physically come through some of the old world clairvoyants and psychics and things, but they had what looks to be a plasma-like device. So essentially, let me just get my hands up so I can describe. Imagine kind of like a round, whether it's a sphere or kind of a disc that has these electrodes or has perhaps even copper or some kind of conductor, and they generate a plasma field. They were able to link, whether it was with the consciousness or the frequency energy of a loved one that had passed, and they could actually get projections like a screen. But this was into spirit world. So this is such an amazing culture to deep dive on. We may even, if I can find out more info around that, I would love to do another show on this as well. Yeah, perhaps they did go more into like a 5D. And really interesting too, when we look into perhaps that there could be, certain people trying to leave us clues, because if we look back into the true history, we also can help discover and unfold like where it is that we could go as well. So yeah, you'll see here in this book as well, some of the dress and the clothing that were worn in the Tartarian days, quite elaborate and quite beautiful, a lot of amazing headdresses and things too. And you can see here from some of the beautiful women, and oh my gosh, I would love to dress up in some of these clothing that we see here. So we can see it's quite royal and regal. This is not sort of like your everyday people, perhaps down the bottom, more kind of like everyday. And let's have another look into this. And I know we covered, Anunnaki and things in some of the other show when we talk about, other giants and things that have perhaps come in. So it seems to be that there's like a mixture of all different things. So this costume, especially the one in the middle with like the star, I really would love to wear this. This just looks amazing. Look how real, like regal and royal. So if we're thinking about also day-to-day living in the Tartarian culture, and the fact that a lot of the buildings didn't seem to have kitchens or bathrooms, perhaps they may have even been breatharian, which makes sense, if they're living or directly consuming sunlight energy and things too. I'll just see if there's anything else in this book that I wanted to show you guys. We might come back into this later. And let me just bring back up my little screen. And we can see here, so we've got the giants and you've got various other different buildings. We can also see that they're quite cathedral-like or seem to have, whether it's like a staff or something to pull in. And you can see here, this is like another depiction. We do have as well, like world fairs or trade fairs that were also popular in the Tartarian culture. And some of these were used to showcase new energy or technology. We also see that there's, and I'll get further into that we had the orphan trains back in this time. You can see here the griffin was a huge feature of the Tartarian culture. So it was often, or is referred to as the crest that represents that Tartarian age. And when we look into some of the older maps as well, not only do we see, griffins and unicorns and giants and dog people and bird beings and all this other cool stuff. All of these things, in the old days and the old culture, they didn't really draw the things of the imagination. They drew things as they saw it. So where we see different things like this, perhaps it's actually, things that, that they actually saw. And so we're actually seeing some truth. So you can see here the windows in the background of this griffin. We have like a cymatic pattern. So it's essentially, it's frequency, sound, and music captured in this glass display. So these were also perhaps little conductors. So with the energy of, say, if we're looking into a church, which may have once been like a healing temple, we would have harvested or built a huge amount of energy, and these would have been capacitors to store the energy. So yeah, we see a lot of the antennas gone, a lot of, things taken to stop the buildings actually kind of being active as well. Let me see. Hold on a sec, guys. I'm just going between screens. So yeah, we can see here, Tesla also, worked with free energy devices and plasma technology. You can see here, even like with the fireplaces, and this was really interesting with my research. So you see here, there's these two kind of like bowl things, and there's highlighted with this red area, seems to be some kind of like a metallic plate. So if we think about like infrared and like heating things up and energy, there seems to be some kind of like conductor or store of this heat and this energy as well. So just looking into the fireplaces alone is fascinating. We can see here all of these old ancient buildings. Some of these also looking into that they may have been capacitors, or may have been a way to store frequency. Again, we see more with the with the fireplaces. Here is a good picture that I wanted to share with you guys. So we can see here there's been like huge excavation done. So what we see in our modern day times in terms of cities and things is actually just a few layers or a few levels. And I was lucky enough to go on a tour. Let me just see if there's anything else that I want to share. Not with this one. Okay, so I was lucky enough to go on a tour, and let me just bring up this. Oh, so here is, before I show you the tour part, so we can see here Ukraine, China, New Zealand, some of these old Tartarian buildings or empires. And we can see Turkey, Sri Lanka, Germany. So you can see here with that archway type building, we also see this in like Paris and like various other different places throughout Europe also have these kinds of things. We see Singapore, Sweden, Indonesia. And these photos, by the way, were from Electric Being. So he has some great information as well. India, South Africa, Thailand, Cuba, Chile, Let me just see. I think it says Paraguay. Hold on a sec. Yep, had a little thing covering it. And we can see here where I was talking about the cymatic windows and the cymatic sound frequencies as well. So you can really see there's such a direct comparison between like what these look like. This one came from Pinterest. I couldn't unfortunately find someone who was, it says on here, Gaia's legacy. But yeah, I couldn't find more to do with some of this. But yeah, you'll see here how the imprint or the pattern on a lot of these stained glass windows are healing. So with the churches and things, we also have the organs, the big pipe organs that also were used for healing. And we also see the bells. Now, I didn't put a photo of this up because there's just so much to share, but we do see in some of like the old days, huge bells being collected and round up and destroyed. Yeah, so Ben's saying as well, fireplaces with no fire. So yeah, there may have been a way to heat, perhaps with like a different technology. And I can see Zania as well, love the huge bells. So yeah, the huge bells actually emitted a huge frequency. And I forget which war it was. There was actually a huge roundup and collection. And the story is, his story is that it was used for the metals and things. So whether it was actually just taking away a lot of the healing aspects that we had within buildings and things is quite sad when you look at it that way. So I just want to jump to this page as well. Let me just see. Oh, 1 second, I'll go back to that. So here is one that I actually toured in Melbourne. So this building here is the exhibition building. So this was actually built, believe it or not, they say in 1 year. So I think it was 1879 to 1880. This was built in a year. And this was for like the World Trade Fair. It was an international exhibition. And we see here, when you actually can go in close to this fountain, there's all Masonic symbolism throughout. And we see sort of the more this kind of like Semiramis type mermaid that has like the double tails. It's a really, really interesting building. Now, my family actually has a link to this. So this was built by David Mitchell, and he is the father of Dame Nellie Melba. So Dame Nellie Melba is actually my great-grandmother's cousin. So she is a world-famous opera singer that had an amazing voice. I didn't inherit her singing abilities. But yeah, so weird twist and a link that is connected with some of this research. So if you are in Australia, you can actually go and with the museum that we have here in Melbourne, you can organize to go on a tour. And we can see here there's sometimes copper on some of these domes with the one at the station. So our huge, I'm trying to think, Flinders Street Station here in Melbourne, you'll see like has old copper and things as well on it. So here is another close-up, more of the fountain. So you can see it's like a double-tailed mermaid. So we also see in a lot of the old maps and things, where we see mermaids. So they literally are creating what was seen in, yeah, Small World, hey? Really, really interesting connection. And here is an aerial view from when we were up on top. So I actually went with my partner and my parents because my mom's really interested in the history with the family connection because it's through her side of the family. So we see here the beautiful gardens. And I actually went to college across the road from here. So I used to hang out and have lunch in these gardens nearly every day. So yeah, really just interesting how you keep getting pulled back into your history and things. And we can see here, this was the museum would have been where I'm standing to actually take the photo. You see that I ironically turned up on the day where they had UFO swings as one of the displays. So I thought that was quite funny and ironic. We can see here a little bit of a cymatic type pattern in the archway of the building. Now keep in mind, this was built within a year. And, when you're on this tour and they're telling you that, I don't understand how people would just go, oh yeah, and not question it. To me, this is insane that we could build something like this within a year. When you see how long it takes people to build things now, it's so crazy. And yeah, as Ben's saying, just look at the precision that's required to build these buildings. Oh, and I can see here rainbow son is saying in Nashville, we had an exact replica of the Parthenon with a giant Anthea built for the World Fair. So yeah, one of the most interesting ones, and I do have a clip of it to show you guys too, is in the UK, the Crystal Palace, which is just, it's breathtaking to view and to look at the plants from all over the world that were in here as well. So what we also see with this is see how it looks to be perhaps like, I think they said to us it was maybe 2-3 stories high when we were on the tour. So we did have to go down the staircase. And my partner and I, being the conspiracy theorists that we are on this tour, we're like, there's no way this building is 2-3 levels deep. You know, if you consider the mud floods and things. And then we come across in the stairwell, they show us, and I wish that I took a photo of this, but we quite quickly sort of had to move past it. There was an actual hydraulic well. So what they had, and I asked the lady, I said to my partner, I'm like, I feel like this goes 8 stories deep. Like this is not a 2-story building. And we asked, and she said, oh yeah, the well actually goes like 8 stories down. And I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, with this, there's a well, and I forget the way, I think it was like a hydraulic type pressure that actually, brought the water up to the levels that they needed it on. So they had that laid over with glass, so you could actually see down into the well that's still there. So this was fascinating, and it does perhaps tell us that the building is a bit more deeper than what they're saying, because why would you excavate just 8 stories just for the well? The other interesting thing that is linked to this building and the rumors, and we did ask because I didn't want to leave without asking, there's rumors that there's underground tunnels that are also linked to the Crown Casino here and to other things. And if you're into the conspiracy side of things, you also hear with the casino that there's stories of people seeing toilet stalls being revolved or changed over within an instant, because unfortunately, if there is suicides and things like that, they need to do a really, really quick cleanup. And there's stories of people talking about tunnels and things. So Melbourne, if you guys are interested in the Tartarian Empire, highly recommend that you guys come and check it out, because walking around every sort of couple of blocks, you're like, oh my gosh, there's another one. There's another one. So a lot of the old red brick buildings, also the red bricks have a higher quartz conductivity about them. So some of the buildings, it's not just the cymatics that were used as capacitors and things to store or harvest. So you've got the things on the top. You've sometimes got the copper or the gold domes harvesting or pulling on this free energy. And I have a little energy display video of this. But then we see it stored in the capacitors. We then see it stored in and generated like within the red bricks too. So this one isn't a red brick building, but there is quite a few red brick buildings or red brick churches that you see in Melbourne as well. And let me just see if I can I want to highlight your question, and I'll bring that up later. Thank you for your questions, guys. If you do have any, please pop it in all caps just to make sure that I can try and get to it. So yeah, really fascinating. And my dad, ironically, has also done an exhibition here when I was a kid. And we see here, this is the Crystal Palace. The World Trade Fair was held here. So you can see it's meant to be people from all over the world. So really, it would have been such a fascinating time. And you see sort of like the regal nature of everyone dressed up and everything too. So this is one of my favorites. This is La Sagrada Familia in Spain, in Barcelona. And my kid's father actually worked on this building. So this was built by Antonio Gaudi, and the technology for finishing, because it's still under construction, was actually lost for around 100 years. And so they actually couldn't work out how to mathematically finish off the building. It's incredible. So when he went over, I programmed a crystal and I got him to throw it in one of the towers to add some energy to this. So yeah, there's a little crystal over there that I've programmed that's generating some beautiful positive energy. So yeah, amazing, really amazing. And I love, and we may even do another show on like the Gothitheum and like Rudolf Steiner's buildings too, because he doesn't build in squares. And there's a limitation, like if we're talking about Saturn energy and cubing or squaring or holding things kind of trapped. There's a different life force energy when we're living in buildings that are round or spiral or have kind of like these harvesting type things on them. So I'm just going to close a few of my windows and just bear with me for a second. I'm just making a little bit more space for the internet to run a little bit smoother. And let me jump in and see what else I've got to share with you guys. Oh, and this is from Avatar. I just wanted to get just a quick screenshot. We see here, this is where they're worshipping the tree, or not worshipping, but they have this beautiful relationship with the spirit of the tree. And when we look into, like perhaps even before Tartaria exist or around the same time, we see about like the ancient giant trees. So this was on the Rosette de Croix. Hopefully I'm saying that right. So it talks about the giant trees, and we see here, this is in different countries, you'll see that there's rocks where the tops have cut off, and we may even go into this in other shows. So imagine like how we have in the Avatar movie, where you see the alien species, the humans, come in to the Avatar planet. It escapes me what the name is right now. And they start to cut down these trees that have an incredible spiritual and etheric connection to the people. It's like part of their soul essence is kind of taken or gutted out away from them. So I'm not sure if this would have coexisted at the same time or anything, but I just wanted to bring it up into awareness because we're talking about a culture of where energy and spirituality was so super connected. And if we're looking into perhaps that we were more breatharian and things too, imagine like for me, like when I've looked into these trees as well, and I just see this huge kind of like grid system that spiritually and etherically and frequency wise holds a lot of energy in our realm or in our dome. So there's some kind of like a spiritual energy that these would have admitted or put out. So what or who came in to cut some of these down? And we also see with some of these mud floods too, that some of the giants and some of the dragons and things like that from around these times, there's some kind of petrification or turning to stone that happens. So when you go to these places, or if you're looking into some of the photos, you will see the faces of dragons. You will see the faces of giants in some of these huge rock formations. I didn't bring this up. Oh, thank you, Jake. Pandora. That's right. And interesting too, opening Pandora's box. So Pandora was the name of the world that they went to in Avatar. So yeah, you can just see more and more representations. And the other thing too, I've heard people talk about, and one of my friends went to one, I'm trying to think where it was. He's in Utah. So it may have been around that sort of part of the States. But saying that like it was like petrified wood. When you sort of go up to some of these rock faces, you could break off some of the mountain energy or the supposed rock face, and it was like petrified wood. The other thing that we also see too is there's been like slices or sections of some of the logs and things that were found in some of these so-called rocks that look like giants or bodies. When they've sliced through it, and they're saying it's sort of like a petrification or a crystallization, it actually looks like different layers of a meat. So you'll see kind of like that fascia layer, the skin layer, the more kind of like visceral fat layer, and the muscular layer within this. So are we living on a land of petrified giants and a world where we would have had just these amazing spiritual trees and these buildings that were dedicated to healing, to music, to art? It's just incredible to think of. And I'm just going to highlight another question to come back to. So yeah, there's just so much information. Let me pop this one down. This is another connection to do with the Tartarian side of things. So after the great mud floods and things, where did all the adults go? This is a question that, is a little bit haunting. Especially if we think about history repeating and different things like this. And I can see Brett saying the cedar trees are really special. They are. And even if you look into the stories of Anastasia or Anastasia, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, from Russia, the Ringing Cedar books. I've only read number 1. But yeah, really interesting things that come out of it. So we see here these little orphans that were shipped across, especially in America, we hear a lot about this. You hear about the orphan trains. So we can see here these little kids have names and things on, and you would see signs up in these old days saying kids for sale. So it was really sad, what happened to their parents. And some of these kids were employed to work on the farms, work in houses and things for multiple different areas. So were they perhaps from the old Tartarian days and shipped out into the modern day world? It would be really interesting if anyone had any passed down stories or lineage from perhaps some of these older kids, or if there's any memories and things that were journaled. And it's when we look to how fast history can be erased or forgotten, it can all be lost within one generation. So if we think about the language that may have been spoken in this one world side of things too, what if these kids lost the language? It would be very hard for them to communicate. So yeah, very sad situation. Let's see what else we had. Oh, let me click in. I'm going to stop screen share so I can bring something up as well. Oh, that's so sweet. I can see Larry saying when he was 4, he would try to replant a Christmas tree because he didn't want it to die. And I think, we have this kind of thing innately within us, this wanting things to prosper. And I can see as well, Jake saying that's why hypnosis is such an amazing tool for researching lost knowledge. Yeah, definitely. And, this will be good to have a look into a few questions. I want to speed it along and see if we can jump into some of these questions. So let's look into this one, and you'll see some of the plasma energy coming at the top of the building. So it's harvesting free energy.
From sound waves, everything is energy. What is the price to pay for seeking the truth? His opponents are not praised, and indeed eliminated. Put your hand. It is pure energy. Everything is energy. It doesn't always reveal the truth to you.
So yeah, another interesting video. Let me just close some of these other windows. And I think I had another video to share, but you can see there with some of the rock faces too. And we know the piezoelectric connectivity or conductivity when you get 2 crystals. So say if you've got 2 quartz and you bang them together in the dark, you will actually see piezoelectric energy coming from these. So we still use crystals in modern day computers and things today. So they're really great capacitors or great for storing things. So I've got this little video. And just make sure. Oh, yeah, this is the last one that I had to share before we jump in and have a look into questions. And because I work a little bit ADHD, as you guys know, I forgot to mention as well. So it was said that the Tartarian Empire, the floods that existed, and let me just bring this up. The floods and things that happened. So if we're looking at kind of a timeline too, so around 1740 to 1894 was when the volcanoes started to go off. So we see in Russia, there was volcanoes that started to become really active. Then we see this representing maybe perhaps a different form of climate change. So yeah, there was great frosts and things that occurred, which led to the mud floods, which went on from 1740 to 1894. So let me play this one for you.
This was Australia in the late 1800s, during the time of it being a penal colony. Now that's what always makes these pictures of Australia back then so interesting. They tell us all that you see here was built before Australia was even established officially as a country. Of course, you see the whited out skies poorly edited here. Another thing you don't see in any of these pictures from the old world is any construction sites, any scaffoldings, any signs of actual construction. Just buildings looking very worn and far older and grander than they should be. Grand structures with the typical muddy streets along with them. These structures were already here long before Captain Cook came along. This Freemasonry was just founded and repurposed and reused by us inheritors. What's sad is most of these buildings you can guarantee are already torn down long before their prime, replaced with ugly glass boxes. Just another travesty in our history that is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
So yeah, that was quite a great video, especially because it is, so prevalent here. So I do want to also just show you quickly this little chapter. So definitely recommend getting this book. But yeah, energy star forts, and we see so many different countries and cultures of where these star forts are built. And one of my downloads that I had, like, while researching this around the star forts too. So you can see here, we've got like the imprint or the pattern. We also see, Dr. Emoto, talked about like water and emotion and how like that would imprint or kind of like embed within the energy of the water. So we know that water can hold memory and things. So I do wonder if some of the water perhaps has some of the memory still active from the Tartarian culture within some of these star forts. And I think one day we'll actually go travel and investigate and feel into the water. I think it would be incredible. But what I actually saw too, when I psychically looked into some of these star forts, what I felt when I closed my eyes and kind of tuned in, I saw a different kind of like ether energy or a thin veil. So if we think about like the star fort and the water, and then we see that there's a different layer of consciousness or a different, almost like veil that we can kind of penetrate, or that spirit can kind of penetrate. So with some of these places, I do see that perhaps that the energy is more conducive to like communicating with beyond the veil. It's hard to put it into English sometimes, the words and things that that I see. So let's have a look into some of the questions. And yeah, it's interesting too with, there was a pyramid recently discovered in Egypt. What they found, I think I talked about this a few weeks ago, so I don't have the details on me right now. But with this pyramid that was discovered, or it was more kind of like a rectangle or a square building that was discovered in Egypt, so different from the others, but it was built on water. So you'll find that with these star forts that the buildings are usually kind of built with on water. Now they kept trying to drain the water out of this this Egyptian building out of the moat. And what they found is it kept replenishing. So I do wonder if perhaps like there's mineral springs or different things that are perhaps under. I can see you guys giving me fairy messages. So I'm going to have a look back through this as well. Let me just bring up one of the questions that we've got. And so we did have a look into, let's have a look. So Ben said, do I feel that Tartarians were using frequency technology to turn liquid stone into, or to turn liquid stone into stone to get these amazing constructions? That is a great question. I didn't look into that, but I did see that these structures or buildings had this weird aspect of growing stronger over time. So it's almost like the older they got, the more that there was like a solidification that happened with some of the stone or the iron and things that was also used in some of them. So yeah, let's have a look into questions and see what we have. Let's see what else we've got. Oh, okay. And I see Tim's question as well. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. I just want to combine and have a look. So we've already kind of looked into, I'll revisit that one though. There's another one around looking into that Ben had too, that was a really great one around the unknown continents. And, did they go or exit, or are they still existing now? So we have seen stories lately of different giants emerging and coming down in Asia. And we know that a lot of Tartaria existed in Northern Asia too. So let's see what we have. Okay, I've got, just spreading these out. I've got 5 cards And you guys know that I love to read face down. So we will be doing this. I'm going to read these face down, or you can barely see my cards. So we're going to have a look at these face down. I've got the question in the way. All right. So we're having a look, and was this like a liquid stone type technology? We also see like laser cutters and things too in some of the ancient, more Asian side of things, where perhaps they used lasers. So I'm sort of seeing they're giving me the word light technology with some of this. The other thing they're showing me is consciousness. So consciousness was very much like harnessed or used in terms of kind of like seeding or bringing some of these things into reality. What they're also showing me, this is really interesting, they're showing me that there's a different, not just a higher level of consciousness that exists like within the ether too. So we're seeing that they're actually drawing on this ether world. And we did talk about this in a few shows back. I can't remember which one it was, but I talked about there was someone who, say, if we've got like a little meter that reads energy, reads frequency. They did send a balloon. This is a modern day little experiment. They sent a balloon with a string or an electrode that could actually measure electrical current and frequency as the balloon would go higher and higher up into the ether. And this is what I'm having a vision of, is that there's different kind of electrical field to do with the ether, but there's a different layer of consciousness. I'm actually seeing what I can only sort of describe as like beings that have a different type of consciousness existing up there as well. And I'm seeing that some of these were actually kind of working with or communicating beyond this veil, or beyond, I guess, our normal human spectrum or bandwidth. It seems that that was perhaps even a little bit greater back in that day. So we've reduced the electricity, we've reduced the conductivity. You know, if we look at it, we wear shoes, so we're not really receiving some of this energy that's coming up from the earth and things as well. So let's just see what else we have with the cards. So yeah, they keep taking me up into the ether. So there may have actually been help with some of these buildings. I do also see giants as well. So there may have been some of the buildings that were perhaps even helped and built by giants. And I didn't show you guys so much like with the doorways, but please go and look into a lot of these Tartarian buildings and have a look how huge the doorways are. You will also see that there's stairs leading up to some of these doorways, because remembering with the mud flood side of things, the doorway that we have, or the smaller version of the door, was not in fact the original door. And sometimes you'll see giant doors with little doors underneath too. So let's flip these cards over. Okay. This is really fascinating because we actually have sort of like a giant sitting in the ether in one of the cards. So what we do see is more kind of like the mud flood side of things. Seven of Cups to me represents there's some kind of like hidden information. And we have a Seven of Wands. This is hidden spiritual information we can dial into and emotively feel into this. So this could be something good for you guys to meditate on. You can always like drop little comments below if you guys got any downloads around this as well. But I do see the Queen of Swords connecting with the Nine of Cups. So this is kind of the information for the buildings and how to work with this. There may have been, just like we see in each time there's been a mud flood, or we hear about like a different epoch that's happened, there's usually been some kind of advanced race or what has seemed to be a god that's given instruction as to how to build these things. So I'm literally seeing the templates or the information and the knowledge coming down from higher realms, and from perhaps some of these interdimensionals or higher dimensional otherworldly type beings. Some of these beings can also more come into like our physical frequency. So you do hear of some stories, like even with Valiant Thor and things like that, like a being from Venus that was able to still come here. And they talk about, with Venus, that it exists on a higher dimension. There is a lot of knowledge. You can actually meditate and connect to Venus and receive like downloads and things. It's more kind of like a university or a college. And we see here the card of the Aeon. So we see here as well, there's an etheric type energy within this. So I do feel that perhaps a lot of the downloads came in from like higher levels of consciousness. Now, when we've done the shows on plasma and we've talked about Tesla, the way that he was born, like in a lightning storm, he had a huge kind of like induction of plasma at the moment that he was being born. So perhaps certain people have a higher level or a cosmic antenna or consciousness that they're able to channel and gain blueprints or information for technology and things around. That's more what I'm seeing in the cards rather than sort of like stone that was perhaps like liquid. It could be, but Spirit's just really wanting to draw my attention to that. So hopefully that helped to answer some of that question. And I'm just having a look. And yeah, I can see Seema saying, giants for sure. The doors are simply way too large. Yeah, how cool is it to look back and see like a lot of the pictures as well? And I just want to have a look. Oh, and I can see here, Thug of Light, cool name. It was a vapor canopy, hence larger beings. So yeah, even if we're looking into like the sun and how sun energy makes things grow, and talking about like the theory that Campbell from autodiacratic, which means like self-directed learning, what he was talking about too in the conference and maybe in some of his other videos. If we don't have this lunar energy to influence, and think about it, after the Tartarian age and around all of the time, oh, thank you, Brett, you're so sweet. Around the time that like all of these empires and things were finishing, we also see lunatic asylums coming in. And all of us talk about the moon. So and nursing staff and doctors will tell you that when there's a full moon, there seems to be more lunatics out. So perhaps the moon coming in, and we know that in a lot of other videos and things, people reference that it was perhaps towed into orbit and that the dirt on the moon is perhaps not as old as like what they say it is. I know Star Wars references Death Stars and things like that. I know it's been compared to that. And yeah, hopefully my internet is going to stay stable. It looks all right on my end, but when I talk about certain topics, you guys know that it does tend to cut out a little bit too. So let me just see. Yeah, two suns. And that's what I've had visions of as well. And even the black sun just recently with what we just saw with the eclipse. So a lot of our information has been covered up. This is why it's important to tune into Spirit Direct and to also do other research. So I'm going to pop up Tim's question. So could the Tartarian building be a dimensional ship to save a portion of humanity during the Cataclysm? So there may have been where, you know, certain people were evacuated. We did have airships and things as well, remember, back then. So there was also other types of flying ships that have been erased out of some of these pictures, as we saw them say in that video I shared with you guys. So let's have a look. And we see more kind of like in the Vimanas that they were probably more likely to be some of the ships and things that could take off. We had a look into that when we talked about the Vedic show the other week. So there's more information in that. Let's have a look and see with Tim's question. So could the Tartarian building be a dimensional ship to save a portion of humanity? So I do get sort of like the download or awareness around this in that they did know what was happening. It wasn't sort of a shock. Let's fill into these 5 cards that I have. So what I'm seeing is a lot of sort of like the spiritual minds and the prophets and different heads actually knew like what was happening. So there was an arrangement to, they're showing me, it feels more evacuating out to the outer lands is the clear word that I'm seeing around this situation. So I do feel that some of the population that was more kind of like of the higher mind or higher intelligence and wisdom were perhaps taken out in time for a lot of these great floods and things happening. What I'm also seeing too is that because it covered so much land mass and things too, it would have been very hard to actually round up so many people. What they keep sort of mirroring to me is looking at it from the civilization standpoint that we're in today as well, and just thinking about, if this sort of situation was to re-happen again today, to relocate so many people might be a really hard feat. So let's have a look into the cards. Wow. So yeah, we do see where it may have been airships and things of that sort of nature, or perhaps like journeying to go into other realms. What they're showing is, though, there was a fall in consciousness that happened with this. So let me just hold up these cards. So we see like downloading, and we see a lot of wisdom and things happening. So there was like premonitions, there was spirit actually warning people what was going to happen. So for those that were sort of like in the know, making moves to get out of these lands, we then see my shaman energy card, which is the Prince of Cups, who sometimes I see as an ET or UFO. So if we're looking at beings coming from an outer realm, or sort of like out of our ice wall too, perhaps today we might look at them more as ET or kind of like UFO-like. I keep seeing like an Agatha inner earth connection with some of the beings as well. So perhaps some went to more the inner earth side of things. I do see that there's certain people that perhaps have stayed to shape the world to the modern day way that we see today. Unfortunately, we know that that's perhaps not a good thing. We see Two of Cups, so there may have been certain contracts or certain people that were able to have established a connection to get out of what we're seeing now. So the Two of Wands for me, it's a card of duality, it's a card of dominion. So we're literally seeing a reset, we're seeing like a disconnect from the spiritual side of things, but some of these spiritual beings kept this information and things alive as well. So yeah, that is another topic for a show, Ben. Thank you for that. So mud flood, and what about the melted stone or the dew attacks as well? So even when we look into the Sahara Desert, there's people that have said that perhaps this is the result of something nuclear. So it does seem that we've had quite a few cataclysmic end of time events and things that have happened. And I want to make sure to look into, just before I have to go. And I can see Rainbow Sun also saying that you've seen the two suns. What was interesting, my vision of the two suns started to come in around the beginning of like the lockdowns and things. Spirit started to just show me visions, like when I was trying to go to sleep or meditate and things. Hey, Ben. Oh, it's so lovely to see you here. I miss you. Hope you're doing really well. Let's catch up soon. I'd love to hear how you're going. Thanks, Jake. Jake just saying that the Vedic show. And yeah, Ben is also saying with the arcs too. So it is said that the arcs are part for this to rescue humanity if required. So yeah, there's really interesting information when you look into like the whole story with Noah and things as well. And yeah, black sun covering the eclipse. That was the vision that I was shown. Interesting that some people also saw it go in front and then behind. So whether there was a few things happening, such an interesting topic. Let's look into one last question. I want to bring up, because Ben was really great putting some questions up before the show started. If you guys want to do that next week, and I'm going to be going and visiting Westall, which is a place here in Melbourne, not too far from me. And I'm going to go there. There was a UFO landing. And so you actually get to see some footage of me walking around this place and having a look. So let's have a look. Where did the Tartarians go? We did answer it a little bit, but I just want to make sure. So yeah, we have some of their old buildings and things. So I'm going to flip these cards over really quick. And we have Ace of Swords, the Fortune card, the Devil, the Hanged Man, Queen of Disc, and the Four of Cups. So we're seeing sort of like almost like a split is what I'm being shown. So again, for those that received the download on that, they were able to like relocate or able to kind of like exit. We do see a dark force energy coming in to rule over our realm or our matrix. But we are actually kind of breaking out of some of the illusion of this going forth for future. We're starting to see the cup that perhaps we didn't see before. So I know that's a very quick answer, but a really fascinating one. So, yeah, please make sure to join me next week for when I go and investigate Westall 66, which happened in 1966 here. There was a school in Westall of children, and there was a UFO sighting that flew over. And I will actually show you video footage of like the trees and things and how it's changed the shape of the trees with this UFO that's flown over. And I just want to bring up as well. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's going to be such a good show. Oh, Ben, that's awesome. Oh, I can't wait to hear about that. And so let me just bring up my little window. And I just want to remind you guys, if you do want a personal reading with me, I'm going away to Uluru really soon, but I will be back and you'll be able to maybe squeeze in 1 or 2 appointments before I go. I have just a couple of spots before then. But yeah, use Jupiter in all caps for 10% off. And I want to remind you guys to please jump on over, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification button. This is the show that I'm talking about coming up. So it's 6 days from now. So yeah, there's a UFO sighting and I will see if I can show you the inlay of where the UFO actually landed. Because the last time I went there, you could still see a little bit of the radiation ring that this UFO imprinted. So thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, oh, and thank you for your well wishes and everything too. I love you guys and I can't wait to see you next week and talk about this cool topic of UFOs and things. All right. So hopefully you guys have a beautiful weekend. See you next week.